I'm Kelly Mitchell, the Wine Siren. I am here today with Sean McBride. He's a vintner and the creator of Crosby Roamann. So I'd
That's
love
right.
to welcome you to the
Thank you.
show.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. So tell me a little bit about your craft, because you're literally an artisan. You are a creator of things that people, all things fabulous. You know, people covet a great Cabernet, and you take great pains to create. Can you tell us a little bit about the process and the mindset that you go in with?
Sure. Although I will say at first, it's always a little bit funny to hear it explained back to me that way, as much as it probably is true, because we do virtually everything by hand. And we make very small amounts of wine. So it is artisanal boutique winemaking. But it always just strikes me as being a little bit new. It's always been new to me that that's actually what we're doing. And I'm just very excited to hear you explaining it that way. It sounds great. But, you know, the way that I learned to make wine was, and the desire to make wine was to do very small amounts of wine very well. And when you put your heart into doing it and your hands into doing it, you end up with a product that tastes, I think, demonstrably different from wines that are made in very big quantities. So this wine, for example, we made just 4 barrels, 100 cases.
Wow.
And this is the kind of wine that we pick by hand, harvest the grapes by hand. We do the punch downs by hand. So while the wine is fermenting, we get our hands dirty by basically mixing the grapes up in the tank or the barrel. And then at bottling, we do a lot of stuff by hand as well. So it never gets the treatment of an industrial winery from start to finish. It's always made in a very small production mindset.
So it really, I mean, you call this wine a handcrafted wine, and it truly is. And they've got some incredible juice. So I have so many questions. First of all, what is in the bottle you're about to pour?
So this is 2012 Crosby Roamann Crosby's Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon.
Sounds fabulous. Now, 2012, so for the people out there that may not know, how long has this wine been percolating? I mean, in 2012, you didn't actually plant the vines.
Right,
So
right.
tell us a little bit about that process, if you will, as far as you go through it.
So at our winery, typically we pick in about October. So the grapes for this wine were picked in October of 2012.
Okay.
Picked one day after a big rainstorm, actually. And there's a saying in Bordeaux that you can't make great cab without it getting wet at least once. So might have been a good thing that it happened.
Okay.
We ferment for about a month, and then it goes into barrel. And it stays in barrel for, on average, about 24 months.
Okay.
And then it goes into bottle, and it's in bottle for another 6 months before it's released. So about 2.5 years.
And what creates the reserve status?
So the reserve is something we started in 2009 because we wanted to do something special with 3 barrels of wine that we thought were just extraordinary. And we set those 3 barrels aside and created Crosby's Reserve, which means that they're the best barrels of the whole vintage of what we made.
Wow.
So we only do that in exceptional years and only with the 3 or 4 best barrels from the vintage.
Shall we try?
Let's.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Has a very heady perfume.
Yes, it does. Can you describe the wine as you smell it?
To me, right now, it has what I would call a very fancy sort of perfume to it. It smells a bit like a French perfume. It doesn't smell strongly of anything particular like berry or vanilla, although there are certain flavors like that in the wine. On the nose, it's mostly just a bit of a confection or sugar and a perfume, and maybe, if I was pressed to say, a sweet blackberry.
Ah, okay. And it's got a lot of parallels. I mean, for me, I always hope that the nose matches the palate to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the surprise on one side or the other. And this is, you do get a little bit of that
a little
it's
bit
like
of
a little floral,
a,
yeah?
a little floral. For me, it's dusty, sort of raspberry. It has sort of a cassis flavor to it.
Absolutely.
I do get a little bit of the oak because it does go into new French oak. So it has a bit of that sweet caramel,
Yes.
a bit of a burnt caramel taste to it. And then there's that, to me, it's confectioner sugar. It's kind of a hard flavor to explain, but it has sort of like a whipped cream sweetness to it, which sort of fills the mouth.
And for those that aren't tasting this wine right now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the wine is completely sweet. It is still a
It is dry.
traditional dry Cabernet.
Yep, that's right. But the flavor is
nuances.
exactly. But the flavors sort of fill the mouth, and it gives you the sensation of it being weighted and sort of residually sweet in the mouth without there being any residual sugar in the wine. This wine probably has about 0.2 grams per liter of residual sugar.
Okay, so for the girls in the audience that don't want to put on weight when they're drinking wine, is that going to help us? Maybe a little bit?
Well, there's definitely a style of red wine which is obviously sweeter.
Right.
And this has that flavor without having any actual sugar. As for how many calories it's got, I haven't done the test, so I don't know.
It's delicious. It's
Thank you.
absolutely delicious.
I think this wine turned out very well.
It really did. So this is a 2012 Reserve Cabernet.
Mm-hmm.
How long can I hang on to this?
I would say 7 to 8 years is a sweet spot for Napa Valley Cabernet.
Okay.
When it's very young, I would decant it. I would get some air into it and let it open up. And then it goes through a bit of a dull spot when it's about 4 or 5. It's best to let it reach that perfection, that age at about 7 or 8. And then it stays good for a year or two. And I would say the wines generally will be good for 12 years, 15 years, in some cases longer, but that would be exceptional.
Beautiful. Now, you mentioned a dull spot, and I'm like, if this is the dull spot or close to the dull spot, this is spectacular. So what's to come?
So this wine, interestingly enough, went
Yes.
into a dull spot right when we bottled it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and
Was it bottle shock? No.
It's a bit of bottle shock.
Okay.
Yeah, every wine has this mysterious journey that it goes on. It sounds a little funny, but it's true. And this wine, as soon as it went into bottle, it got dull. It closed up. And I think that might have been because we had racked it and blended it too close to bottling. So it was racked and blended and then bottled within a short period of time. Once it was in bottle, it closed up. And now it's starting to taste really good. So this is the first year, actually, this wine has just blown up. And we just opened this bottle a couple minutes ago, and it already tastes very soft and fruity.
Absolutely. It's delicious. What is your proudest moment as a vintner with CROSBY ROAMANN?
Sharing wines with people. I mean, that's always the most fun. Sitting at this table when we have our dinner parties and enjoying the wines, opening CROSBY ROAMANN, as well as the other wines that I love, sharing them with my family. Those are always the best moments. I also love making wine, so it's just fun to come into the winery and pick grapes and ferment. But really the most special moments are when I see people enjoying the wine and having that aha moment. This really is great, and that makes me really happy.
Excellent.
The wines do end up through distribution at a lot of really wonderful restaurants all over the country. So you can find them in California, in Texas, Louisiana, Florida, Washington, D.C., New York, New Jersey. And that's where a lot of people find us and first see the label, see what the production is, because we put the case production on the back of the label. So they see this as a very small production wine, it tastes great, and then they seek us out when they come to wine country.
Okay, that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you for coming to the winery.
It's an absolute pleasure. And thank you, CROSBY ROAMANN, for hosting us and sharing some of this fabulous wine.
Cheers.